the Vice President of, Hybrid IT Solutions from Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Scott Anderson.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, I got to make that title up, so it's actually Hybrid IT Transformation Solutions, right? It's what I want to talk to you guys about today, and thank you so much for coming, by the way. I mean, it is a beautiful place, Al, as you said, and the weather is just incredible. I don't live far from here, and it's never like this, so enjoy it while you can. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is just in general what's going on with HPE. We get a lot of questions, about the splits and spin merges and what are we focused on and what's our future hold. So I'll walk you through that. And then sort of for me, the more fun part of it is my role at HP, at the old HP company and then HPE, has been IT operations. I ran, IT operations and infrastructure and application operations for the company for years. And I want to talk a little bit about our transformation, what we've been doing, what we will be doing, and then talk about, I was asked to talk a little bit about some of the separation work that we've been doing. And I'll start with saying, if your company says, we're going to do some spins and some separations and some spin merges, go find another job, right? That is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I mean, it took years off my life. I'm 29 years old, and look at me, right? It is real work, and or better yet, if your company says that, go find, hook up with Dasher, and they'll help you with that sort of thing, right? But no, that's incredibly difficult work. So what I'm going to talk about to begin with, though, is what's going on with the company. As you guys know, Hewlett Packard, HPE's predecessor, and now HPE has been around a long time. And what we do for customers is help them through technology transitions. And you can see, this slide shows many different transitions that have gone on over the years. Right now, this is certainly in my career, and I've been doing this a long time. This disruptive phase that we're in today is the biggest one yet, right? This transformation, I went through the virtualization transformation. Heck, I was working in IT before PCs existed, right? Before email existed. These have all been huge transformations, huge transitions. But this transition that's going on now into the movement to the cloud, the amount of compute that's being done at the edge, the fact that everyone is generating data all the time, this is just a huge change, and we're here to help. Our partners are here to help. So our core belief is that everything computes, and this is the point that I was just bringing up. Technology is everywhere, right? We talk about the intelligent edge, right? I mean, that's us with our phones, right? We're the edge, right? There's a bunch of you people out there probably right now looking at your phones that you're on the edge, right? It's in our homes, it's in our cars, stadiums, shopping centers. Technology is everywhere, and there's just an immense amount of data being generated. And how do we deal with that data? What are the opportunities around that data? And then what answers can we gain? What benefit to society is there? What benefit to business is there? And these are things that HPE thinks about. So one of the basic tenets, and we manufacture hardware, so let's be clear. One of the tenets that HPE feels strongly is the world is hybrid. And hybrid is not a thing, it's a state of being, right? You'll hear people talk about, we sell or support hybrid IT. What is that, right? Hybrid is just where you are at any given moment, right? The vast majority of enterprises are either moving some some amount of workload or thinking about moving some amount of workload to the public cloud, one of the big three. Where we see our space is helping our customers manage that combination of on-prem, off-prem. There's gonna be stuff in your data centers or in your compute rooms or whatever you call them for a while, if not forever. And I'll talk about, like I said, the fun part of my conversation with you is I'll talk about what we did in HPE, where we sort of thought we were going and where we ended up going when we started that movement of workloads to the cloud. And the cloud, when we talk about hybrid at HPE, the cloud means a lot of things. It's not all not in your data center, right? There is some private cloud out there, and it's a big part of the equation. We're very focused on the edge. Edge computing is a big go-forward direction for Hewlett Packard Enterprise. We understand that data is being generated and consumed at the edge, that the idea that working and handling that data center where it's generated is going to get really important and more important. We see this as a huge revolution going on in the industry, and we're a big player in that market. And then services are more critical than ever. One of the things that comes up in conversations with customers and partners is, well, didn't you get out of the services business, right? And it's important to talk about that. We spun the old ES organization. It's part of DXC now, great services partner. But primarily, what they're doing and what we're doing are very different. We're very much more consultative. We engage with professional services. We don't do a lot of IT operations sort of thing. We're not going to pick up and operate your data center like DXC will do. And so we still have a huge services organization, and I'll talk about that. So let's talk about the splits. At the end of 14, first day of 15, we did the Hpe Hpi split, right? So this was server storage, networking, software, services, separating from the consumer products, PCs, printers, that sort of thing. That was a huge separation. I'll talk a little bit about the logistics of that here at the end of the conversation, but that was the first one that we've done. We've created this was 2 Fortune 50 companies, created a real winner in the HP Inc. go forward, which has been great. And then we did the DXC about a year later. We spun our services organization into a spin merge with CSC to create DXC Technology, which is a IT services company. And we've just recently spun off our software, non-core software portfolio to Micro Focus. And I don't know if there's anybody from Micro Focus here today, somewhere. Hey, guys. So Micro Focus is a close partner of ours, and we'll be working together, I think, for the foreseeable future. So kind of bottom line to wrap up before I go into some detail, what we're doing here is we're just, our catchphrase, our motto is we make hybrid IT simple. The idea that we will help our customers work through their transformation efforts. I'm engaged with a lot of huge customers, a lot of small customers. I spend a lot of time with people who say, okay, we're going to the cloud, help me figure out what to do, right? Or, we're trying to understand what we're doing in the cloud. We're trying to understand the financials of it. How does this all work? So, we are striving to make that simple through our products and our services. And then we're focused on the edge. We believe that edge computing is going to be a huge opportunity for us and our partners, and we're really focused on providing products and services out at the edge. And then we tie the whole thing together, right? That is, you've got some hybrid, you've got some edge, that's where you live. And then the idea here of this slide is our services, HPE PointNext is our services organization. Our services wrap around that. So what we've been doing over the last couple of years is spinning, but we've also been doing acquisitions and significant partner plays. So you can see on here, we've got a lot of acquisitions that we've done recently: Cloud Cruiser, SimpliVity, the Hyperconverged Space. Cloud Technology Partners is one that was just recently announced. Nimble Storage has been a great acquisition. I think there's probably somebody from Nimble here today. Aruba in the networking space, certainly just been a huge success for us. Niara, Rasa, there's been a few others. We've got extended partnerships. We've got a program called Pathfinder. And what Pathfinder is it's our venture capital branch at HPE. And so we invest in a lot of companies to stay involved and to create very tight partnerships. Docker, Mesos, Tamer, we've been making investments in these companies, and we'll continue to do so. Chef is another great example. So we've got investments and really tight partnerships with these organizations, and a lot of the solutions that we generate use those platforms. And then partnerships with the guys you see here. I won't read through them, but very important to us. The future of HPE is really, really closely tied to the way we work with our partners and our channel. And you'll see more and more focus on that from HPE as we go forward. If we describe PointNext, again, what I wanted to point out here is that it's primarily advisory. I mean, in all seriousness, advisory and professional is the biggest part of it. There's about 25,000 people in this organization at HPE, so it's not a small services team. CTP, Cloud Technology Partners, will become part of this. And what CTP does, or historically have done, is move people to the public cloud, right? And so what I want to be very clear is that we understand what's going on. A lot of times when I talk to customers, they say, oh, you're HPE, you're going to try to sell me hardware, right? Isn't that what you do? And the reality of it is we understand what's going on in technology. We understand the disruption that's going on, and we want to play across all of the platforms. And we know that everybody is doing some movement to the public cloud. We want to be involved in that. We want to be involved in providing the hardware and services and software for what remains behind. And we want to provide the tools that tie it all together. We've got a product release coming out in December at Discover in Europe. And that will be what we're pulling together to sort of tie it all together. And you'll see a lot more coming from that. But the services remain a really important part. A big part of PointNext is the flexibility to sort of do what you want with your own platforms. So, we've already talked about this. Let me move on. So, let me just talk about the company. It's important to understand where HPE is today, and this will talk about size, scale, and motivation. So there's about 52,000 people in the go-forward company. We're doing business in 120 countries. Partnership first, as I said. We are focused on the channel and partners and using those partnerships to build momentum in the industry. This is really important to us. The bias for action and innovation, these are things that have been historic HP traits. These things we will continue to do. We will be innovators and we will take action. Meg is always pounding into us, run to the fire, right? Run to the problem. This is something that that she, every time I talk to her, every time I hear her speak. And that bias for action is really critical to our success. We will continue to strive and deliver quality. You can see on here, we've made some huge strides in just the quality of our customer support and success of our customers. We've reduced downtime significantly. The PTD means project to date. So I don't know when the project started, but when we had an hour and 10 minutes of downtime on average, that's pretty nasty. So it's good to see the progress that's been made. So, at a glance, we will continue to focus on social and environmental leadership initiatives that we've got. We're heavy into recycling. We're heavy and committed to local economies and local social networks. An important thing here is our consumption of electricity is moving rapidly to renewables. All of our data centers are 100% renewable energy supply. And so, we're going to continue to focus on things that are important for the world. And then, you can see, as I said, there's 25,000 employees in our services organization. It's a huge services team, number 2 by IDC. We're number 1 in servers, number 2 in networking and storage. So our objective is to be 1 or 2 in everywhere that we play, right? And we are the leader in private cloud infrastructure for folks setting up private clouds on-prem. And then you can just see where our revenue comes from. Still, America's being the biggest, so, it's important to look at, given the organization that's here, the team that's here. And then EMEA and APJ continue to be strong players. And now for the fun stuff. So, we'll talk about this. We have been transforming in HPE IT for years. And I think that most of you are familiar with a lot of the work that we've done. We started about 10 years ago. Randy Mott was the CIO. I worked for Randy. We had about 480 data centers around the world. We were in 29 countries. We had 85 large data centers. So those 85 large data centers, anything over 10,000 square feet is how we characterize that. And we had another, 400 small ones, rooms full of computers. Disparate technology, not terribly virtualized. Thousands, you can see we had 7,000 applications in production, so thousands of applications. And the way you end up with thousands of applications and hundreds of data centers is years and years and years of inadequately integrated acquisitions, right? We would acquire a company, IT would show up and say, hi, we're here to help, right? We're the Borg, we're gonna integrate you. And that business would say, get away from me, right? They would talk to whoever had acquired them in the company, whether it was the storage guys or the server guys, and say, you make those IT guys go away, because if you make me change anything about the way I do my business, the reason you bought us is gonna fail, right? And so IT was told to stand down, go away, come back in 2 years, maybe 3 years, and then we'll integrate them. Well, 2 or 3 years would go by, and we never really wanted to do the work anyway, and they still didn't want us around, and suddenly you've got another data center, another instance of SAP. I was just talking to Terry, that's something we're still working on. Another instance of everything. When we started this effort, for example, we had more than 100 instances of SAP. Just think about the licensing that you're spending there, let alone the business problems that are injected by that. So we had 7,000 applications, 470 data centers, and we looked at it, and this exercise truly was pretty much all about money. the beginning of this, which was consolidate data centers, reduce applications, do that rationalization that we all do, and just stop spending so much money, right? So the bottom line on that is we were spending about 4% of revenue running IT in the old HP company. So if you remember what the revenue was, it was 110 billion, right? We had a really big IT budget, which is really fun, right? But, you know, definitely way out of whack with our peers in the industry. And we would review our spend and we would compare ourselves to our peers, but we picked our peers, right? So we picked people who were spending about 4% of revenue and say, yeah, see, you know, we're good. But the people we were picking were basically people we could see from our office in Palo Alto, right? It was Google and Facebook and Twitter and these guys who, they're in a whole different line of business, obviously. They tend to spend about 4% of revenue, but what they're selling is IT, right? What we were selling was, you know, engineering and services and support and software and so on. But, you know, we should have been comparing ourselves to IBM and GE and companies like that, right? And they do about 2% of revenue. So the objective, the first part of this was let's drive out costs, let's drive out 2% of revenue, right? We did the data, started with an application rationalization, basically sat in a room, most painful thing I've ever done, I think, sat in a room with business leadership and IT people and said, here's all the applications we think serves this one business process around the world. Let's pick one, right? And go forward. And everybody's like, yeah, we need to rationalize applications, just don't rationalize mine, right? That's always the answer from business leadership. So very difficult work. We got down to about 1,800 apps in production, and then we started the data center consolidation. And at the time, we built 6 new data centers all in the US. So we took the opportunity to repatriate a lot of our data. This was all HPE internal company data. This wasn't customer data. So, you know, we had a few fights over data sovereignty, but generally we were able to pull it all in. We built 6 data centers all in the US, all new hardware, ruthless standardization on hardware, ruthless virtualization, you know, single operating system release, single database release, you know, everything had to be the same. And then we drove our new application portfolio into those data centers. All said and done, when we were done with this effort, we went from about $4 billion a year to about $2 billion a year. So today, even less. So we went from, we took, and you know, that's adult money, right? $1 billion is a lot of money. $2 billion is, you know, just amazing, right? And what's really interesting about this effort is when we went into, Mark Hurd was the CEO when we started this. When we went in to talk to Mark about it and said, you know, we put together this plan and we think we can come up with $2 billion a year. Do you want that? And of course, you know, what CEO is, that's points of stock value, that's tons of reinvestment potential, you know, R&D. When we talked to them, they said, yeah, let's do this. Everybody was on board. I had dinner with Ann Livermore the other day, who was on Mark's staff at the time. She was running our services team. And she was the biggest supporter of it. But we were laughing about it because the minute we stepped out of that room, right, and you leave the CEO's staff and you go to any line of business and say, you know, this is what we're doing, you know, it was just a disaster. So point of learning for me, and I would tell anybody this, anytime you do anything like this, make sure it's not an IT project. It's a business project, right? The work that you do with your customers, with your end user customers or your consumers of what you provide, make sure that they understand that what you're doing is about them and not about IT having a cool idea, right? Which was sort of how this was perceived and ended up being a little bit painful to start, but we got there. So we did that big exercise, popped out of that with these 6 data centers, and everything was wonderful, except that, and I mean, these are huge data centers, just so you know. I mean, the last one that we built is acres of floor space. We built these things, and within 18 months of construction and occupation, we started to run out of capacity in our data centers. And, you know, we had planned this very carefully. We had an immense amount of excess capacity. We had a strategy for technology refresh that included having, you know, a lot of free space and capacity and power and cooling so that we could build new rows of racks and decom old rows of racks. You know, the data centers combined between them had, at the time, maybe 100,000 servers in them. This is a big footprint. But we immediately started to run out of capacity. And, you know, we did a lot of analytics on that, and really what we understood was the business, as revenue in the old HP companies started to flatten out a little bit or even decline slightly, the businesses were responding by investing in IT at a higher rate than what we had anticipated. They were solving business problems with IT. And I had a really interesting conversation with Meg about this one day where she said, you know, if revenue is declining, IT spending is declining. I don't care, right? I mean, revenue is down, IT spending must be down. But what we were seeing was this inverse relationship, whereas revenue started to go down a bit, the businesses were trying to shorten their supply chain or, you know, do whatever it was they were trying to do by investing in IT, and we were seeing an increased spending in IT as revenue was struggling. And, you know, accordingly, our plans started to fall apart. So we built these huge data centers and we immediately ran out of capacity. So then we started the next phase, the real transformational part of our journey. The first thing, as I said, was consolidation, virtualization. That's just breathing to IT people, right? There's nothing special about that. We all need to do that. We do it every day, all day. The next thing we did is that we started to run out of capacity. We were responding to that capacity challenge by adding capacity, right? Which didn't go over very well with my boss, right? So we were buying modular data centers that we manufacture, EcoPods they're called. The biggest one is a megawatt of capacity, fully self-contained, comes in, you know, we characterize it as a container, but it's a really big container. It takes about, you know, 20 semis to deliver the thing. But it's a megawatt of capacity. Direct exchange air, comes with its own gensets, chillers, everything, right? It's just fully self-contained. So we started buying these things. We'd put 4,000 blades in them, and we'd just butt them up against the outside of our data center building and say, okay, there we go. You know, and I did 6 of those. And we had, and you know, they're not inexpensive, but compared to expanding the capacity of a data center, which is really easy to do, but very costly, they were very cost effective, right? I mean, it's easy enough to add power and cooling to a data center, but you need chillers and crack units and UPSs and gensets and all the stuff. You get into, you know, double or triple digit millions pretty quickly doing that kind of work. This was a lot more cost effective than that, but still problematic. So we started expanding our footprint, then had a fateful conversation with Meg Whitman one day about data center strategy. And Meg says, I'd like to understand your strategy. It looks like your strategy is to just keep building data centers forever, right? And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, there's this unfortunate reality. You start doing your dance, right? And it didn't go over well at all, right? The answer was, well, that's not a strategy. You know, that's not even a plan. You're just responding, right? And that's the sort of the light that went on for me and my organization was, okay, it's time to transform. It's time to do something with this cloud thing that we're all hearing about. This was maybe 4 years ago, so it was you know, it's time for us to get serious about this. You know, and then the other question that Meg asked that day was, well, you know, you're expanding your footprint. I understand what you're saying about, you know, growing faster than you thought. I'd like to understand what your utilization is of the assets that you've already installed, right? Any CEO is going to ask you this question. What's your CPU utilization? And being an IT guy, I like to answer, well, it's more about memory and, CEOs want to know about CPU utilization. And our CPU utilization at that point was about 10% across our data centers. And I've got a lot of excuses, reasons, whatever you want to call them, for the reason it was 10%, but it was about 10%. And so, the conversation's going really poorly at this point with Meg. And she says, well, I'd like to understand, let's get Gartner in here and have them tell us what the industry average is, because I'd like to see that at 80%, right? And you don't argue with Meg. You don't say, well, 80 might not be right, but somewhere between 10 and 80 would be good, right? So let's get Gartner in here and see what the industry average is. And on that day, thankfully, the industry average was 11%, right? And I'm like, I get to keep my job another day, right? So we started looking at this, and first, why was our utilization so low? And again, I've got lots of excuses, but the main reason that we were able to find was we were just dramatically over-provisioning every single implementation that we did, dramatically. And so then we looked at it and said, well, why are we dramatically over-provisioning? And we were dramatically over-provisioning because it was so hard to get infrastructure in the company that developers and application support people might need 100 VMs, and they'd get 500 VMs because they never wanted to talk to us again, right? They're like, I can create this sandbox for me to the rest of my career do whatever I need to do and never have to talk to IT again, right? And so we saw that it took us 20 days to deploy a VM. And I can build a VM. It takes about 6 minutes, right? It took 20 days because of all the process and architectural reviews, and we had a weekly CAB meeting. And so if you missed 1 week, you had to come the next week. You'd show up and say, oh, you don't have your artifacts. Where's your monitoring? Okay, well, come back next week, right? 7 days would go by, come back next week. So our processes were bad. And this is where the cloud, really was excelling and is excelling, right? It's simplifying all of those things. So it took 20 days to do a VM, 60 days, more or less, to get physical hardware. For some reason, that was something that a developer needed. That's order it, receive it, rack it, blow the OS on, databases, middleware, all the stuff. So we looked at it and said, well, if we can solve this provisioning problem, we'll solve this underutilization problem, solve this data center problem. It all started to play together. So the first thing we did was we deployed a private, what we called a cloud at the time. And with the acquisition of CTP, I had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago when we were sitting around, and I was explaining this first cloud that we deployed. It's got about 60,000 VM capacity. It does, I call it highly automated platform provisioning, right? You go to the portal, you say, I want this many cores and this much memory and this much storage, this kind of middleware and this operating system and these databases and this kind of load balancing, and click. And in about 20 minutes, you get an email that says, here's your login, knock yourself out, right? Our intention was to make it easy and self-service so that people stopped over-provisioning. Also, our intention was to provide the benefits of the public cloud, which we felt we could do at a lower cost, right? We were, for the first time in our careers in IT, we had competition. Our business leadership would say, oh, IT's a pain to deal with. I'm just going to pull out a credit card and go get something at AWS and I'm going to be good, right? And so we had to compete with that. We had to provide a service that answered those problems. We had quite a large footprint already in AWS and Azure. just from people charging their corporate credit cards that we didn't really even know about. But we were able to pull that in and do it at a much lower cost. And I mean, there's a lot of discussion here about cost. And people talk about cost, public versus private, you know, and whether you're fully loading everything. In our case, and you know, your mileage will differ, we are definitely able to operate these environments at a much reduced cost to what we can buy it from a public cloud provider. But that's the scale that we are. It's going to be different for everybody. So we built this thing out. We started analyzing our environment, and this is an interesting part of this story. We had a process we put together that scanned our entire environment, both virtual and physical, looked at every OS and determined, we set a couple of parameters. We said we want to identify every server that's never been utilized more than 2% over the last quarter. So 3 months, never exceeded 2% at the CPU, and never exceeded 10% at memory, right? So it had to meet both of those criteria. Ran this scan, 10,000 servers, right? Just crazy. But getting them back, once they get out into the wild, getting them back is hard, right? They get some little bit of an app on them or something, and they're just out there. So what this first environment that we did, what the CTP guys I was getting to, they call it a minimum viable cloud, which I love. I'll take the terminology. I've always called it highly automated provisioning. But what that first cloud did was enable us to move our production into that environment and drive utilization up, because, you know, if somebody over-provisioned or never utilized the CPU at the levels that we expected, or storage or memory for that matter, we could just automatically reduce the size of their environment. If they never logged in, we could just archive it and delete it, right? We had the tools and automation on top of it. We were able to drive utilization up to 55% on the hosts, on the underlying hosts for that. We built, as I said, about 60,000 VM capacity, and we just shoved our application portfolio onto it, right? We did about 70% of our workloads and moved them in there, and sort of patted ourselves on the back and said, okay, we're good. The benefits were obvious, right? People still over-provisioned, but we could now do something about it without even talking to them, right? We would just reduce what they over-provisioned. They eventually came to trust it enough that it was always going to be there when they needed it, to where they stopped doing that, right? So this is the idea of what are the benefits of the cloud, whether they're on-prem or off. These are the benefits for us. So we did that, super successful. Then we looked at what are we going to do about the public cloud? And we put together a strategy where we initially believed a full 80% of our workloads would be in some sort of public or SaaS model, right? So we kind of looked at all of our workloads and said, what are we going to do here? And I think a lot of companies are doing this work, right? They're analyzing their workloads. That very first thing you need to do is that application rationalization and workload rationalization. Determine the best place to put things. And the best place has a lot of connotations. It's money. It's concerns over lock-in that we all have. It's all of these things, right? You have to think about so many things. So we looked at it and said, we believe about 80% of our workloads ultimately would go to some sort of public cloud, right? In our case, Azure and our SaaS providers. And the way we broke that down is we said, all right, we're going to do 20% SaaS. We're going to do 60% public cloud. There's going to be about 10% of stuff that's going to be untouched. You know, this is always going to run in our data centers. For us, that's our SAP HANA appliances, our big Unix boxes running EDW. We've got a big IBM mainframe that's still knocking around HPE that's I've never been able to kill off. It's still out there. So those things we knew we were going to keep. So 10% there. And then 10% we'd run in some sort of smallish private cloud, right? So we did that. we started that effort, and we immediately realized, we probably got to about 20% penetration into the public cloud. And we immediately realized, for us, it was causing us a lot of trouble. And it wasn't security, it wasn't all the stuff that people, worry about. I mean, the reality of it is those guys do security really well. It was cost, just generalized cost. It was more than we expected. And it was the uncontrollability of the cost that was really killing us, right? Once you get into the public cloud environment and you're really using it, every click of the mouse costs you money, right? And if you just tell me something's going to be expensive, it's going to be $1 million a month, expect your bill for $1 million, we could deal with that. But if one month it was $1 million, and the next month it was $1.5 million, and then the month after that it was $1.8 million, I mean, it was the uncontrollability, unpredictability of the cost that was really killing us. And so then we stepped back and said, okay, let's really analyze what we want to do here. If we build something, it becomes a capacity management issue, right? Where I can build it, I know what it costs, I know what it's going to cost every month, and I can manage that. If we go out into the public cloud and we kind of let people use the cloud like it should be used, which is, to enable you to work faster and more efficiently and be agile, then that lack of control is really going to hurt us. So, oops, let me go back. Yeah, actually, we'll go to this one. So where we ended up is kind of like this. Our strategy initially, as I said, was about 80%. We are a SaaS-first organization, right? We have decided we will do SaaS first in every opportunity that we can. When we have a new business process or a new line or whatever it is, we'll look for a provider. We did the easy ones first, the same that everybody is looking at. We did Workday, we did SFDC. That was maybe 20% of our workloads right there with a bunch of other small stuff. And then we did Office 365, right? So we had not initially planned to do Office 365. But I was running the world's largest single instance Exchange environment. We had 600,000 mailboxes on it. And we were making Exchange do things it just wasn't made to do, right? I mean, and besides directory services, that Exchange environment was the thing that really stressed me out, right? Running directories, for you guys that run your directories, that's like the heartbeat of your company. Something goes wrong there and you're just toast, right? But this Exchange environment was crazy. And in HP, and now HPE and everywhere else, if Meg loses access to her mailbox for a moment, right? She is calling, she's got my cell phone number, she's got my home number, right? It's painful, even a moment. So when we did the HPI spin, we were sitting around and we said, what are we going to need to do to build an HPI email instance, right? How many servers, what kind of, it's about 100,000 mailboxes. How are we going to do this migration? And we're sitting there looking at each other like, we're a bunch of idiots, right? What are we thinking? Let's just go get 365, right? So we did HPI on 365, and it was super successful. So as soon as that separation was done, we came back and did HPE, which by then had gone to about 300,000 mailboxes. And, we were doing 5,000 a day. Even at 5,000 mailboxes a day, it took forever. But that got us to about 30% of our workloads with SaaS providers. Our objective is 40. We're not there yet. We run about 50% of our workloads today in a private cloud. So we've got the minimally viable cloud that I talked about, which is really highly automated VM farms. right? Let's be clear. It does middleware, it does databases, but this is just extreme automation, right? We have also deployed a OpenStack cloud, and we also continue to broker out to Azure, right? We're big partners with Microsoft. We're obviously not huge partners with AWS. So our environment today, if you go to our portal, you put it, you're an employee, and anyone can use it. This is key. Not just IT employees. You just have to have an employee number at HPE. You go to the portal, and you can say, I want to work in this version 1 cloud, which has sort of become our legacy space. This is this highly automated provisioning platform. I want to work in the version 2 cloud, which is our OpenStack cloud with all the benefits of the cloud that we expect, right? Auto scaling, it's got the APIs for spinning up, spinning down, all the goodness that you want from a cloud. We reserve that for cloud-native development projects and truly transformed applications, right? So that first cloud is where kind of everything runs. They move into that second cloud as they're truly transformed, right? So you can work in either of those, or you can say, I want to broker out to Azure. So where we ended up with public cloud penetration for us, we're probably about 7% of our workloads today. We got maybe to as high as 20. We've pulled back. We don't have any rules that say you can and cannot do it. We thought about that and thought, well, if we start limiting people to what they do, it sort of defeats the whole point of the cloud. But we do direct bill people, right? And so the business leaders say, well, why are you doing it there when you could be doing it over here for 30 cents a day cheaper or whatever it is, right? So the things that we see in the public cloud for us are short-term development projects that don't need access to a lot of data, because that data transfer will get you. That's one of the things we learned that we didn't expect, is just the increased networking costs as well as data exfiltration fees and things like that. So short-term development projects that don't need a lot of data, or external-facing web pages, we've got thousands of them. They're perfect for that. The public cloud is perfect for that. Or short-term, like go-to-market plays, right? Where we might, I'm trying to think of an example. Well, if you've been to HPE Discover or any of the shows we do, we spin up a bunch of stuff around them, and all of that will be in the public cloud, and then a week after the thing's done, it just goes away. Right, so we do things like that, and this has really worked out to be kind of the best use of public-private that we've got, that works for us. And when we talk about hybrid, this is the great example, right? This is public, private, SaaS, traditional. This is everything. And the tools to manage it and the capabilities around that are what HPE is in the business of providing to our customers. And as I said, we've got a new product release coming in December. It's currently called New Stack. Boring, I know. It's going to get branded something. But New Stack basically is a SaaS platform that manages all of that, right? So you get an account, you log in, it scans you connect your network to it, it scans your network, so you got VMware, you got Kubernetes, you got whatever you got. We'll help you manage all that, as well as all that brokering out to the public cloud, so you can kind of start to manage your entire hybrid platform from one place. I don't know how I'm doing on time. Somebody give me a heads up if I'm about out. 10 minutes, okay, good. Oops, I gotta go the other way. I want to talk a little bit about separation. So we did this. This is HPE Hpi. So this was announced in November of 13. So we kind of got a heads up in October, right? We had no idea what we were going to do, right? We sat in a conference room at an old folks' home in Roseville for a month, right? We could rent out this big giant rec center or whatever at this old folks home up in Roseville. And we said, great, let's do it. We sat in there for a month, all over Christmas vacation, everything, and we planned this thing out. Said, how are we going to do this? Nobody had ever done a separation of a corporation this large. And so we came out of there on the 6th of December, or 6th of January, we started this program. And from an IT perspective, we had to be separated by the 1st of August. Because our year end is the 31st of October, you're required to show the SEC that you can close the books as two separate companies for 3 months before November 1st, which is when we split on Wall Street, right? So August 1st was our objective. Started on the 6th of January. I can tell you the simplest things. So you ask a bunch of IT people, create a Fortune 50 company in 6 months, how are you going to do it? We just said, well, we're going to make a copy of everything, right? We're just going to duplicate everything and strip the data out of each other's stuff and call it good, right? I mean, it's not terribly elegant, but it was the only way to do this. The first thing we had to do is build the environment, right? It says 7,000 new servers built. So we had to build 7,000 physical servers in 45 days. And I had a build team that built servers, right? That's all they did. So, they did organic growth. I mean, this is a huge environment. Organic growth, project-driven stuff. We could do about 125 physical servers a week. And they did that all year long. And, that's a lot of servers, 125 servers a week. Well, we had to build like 400 a day on the very first day or we were failing, right? So something as simple as that, and I tell you, we were failing, right? I went to a agency, just a contract employment agency, and I said, I need 250 people by Monday, right? They were like getting homeless guys and literally, 70% of them failed their drug tests. It was crazy. But this is just a quick point. I had in my whole career always been successful when times really got hard by just working harder, right? I mean, things were just crazy. All hands on deck, let's get this done. That was not the answer here. That did not work, right? We had 3 places in the world where we staffed 125 contract employees in each one. They were just sitting around building OSs and databases and doing all the stuff to get these physical servers up and running. And we would go from one time zone to the next and just keep working. Not the answer. Finally, after a couple of weeks when we're 1,000 servers behind schedule or whatever, and Meg is, it's hard to imagine how intense this was, right? This was standing in conference rooms all day, every day, getting yelled at, right? Because there were billions of dollars at stake, right? Billions of dollars of stock value at stake. This was an exercise in quality, and it was a great learning for me. I stopped. I got our quality guys out of the manufacturing line. I said, come here and tell me what I'm doing wrong. And they got a room about this big, covered the walls with whiteboards, and they wrote every single step of everything that we did. I mean, it covered the walls, every single step. And they'd say, okay, go. And then it would break. They'd say, okay, it broke right there. And then we'd do a release. You talk about agile development. It's like, okay, guys, I need a release in 20 minutes, go. And they'd do it. Okay, broke, and we did that for about a week. Got that thing dialed in, and it worked. But man, crazy. And I just wanted to show scale. The separations of this company was, just huge. Just the test cases that we had to run, the number of SharePoints, 100,000 SharePoints that we had to figure out what to do with. We had 7,000 people running tests all the time, 19 million batch jobs that had to be touched and changed. I mean, these are just huge scale, right? as I said, your company ever says they want to do this, go find another job. Anyway, wrap this up. Excuse me. From the HPE perspective, we are really embracing the idea that the world is changing, and I want people to really understand that we know that, right? We're not putting our head in the sand and say, hey, we're just going to keep selling you servers and the world's going to be good for us. We know it's changing. We know there's this huge movement to the cloud. We're investing in tools and processes and people that can help with that can work with our channel partners and other partners, SIs, to help our customers navigate what's going on right now with this digital transformation. It's complicated work. Everybody's at a different place. Everybody has a different reason. My guidance to you guys as you deal with your IT leadership, or if you are the IT leadership, as you deal with your company leadership in this space, is, everybody wants to do something. And I always just say, okay, why, right? Let's figure out what business outcomes you're trying to accomplish, and then let's move forward. But so many of us, myself included, when we first started this thing, we're all reading the same magazines. My boss is saying, go to the cloud, go to the cloud. I didn't know why, I didn't know what for. Once we stepped back and really said, what are we trying to accomplish? Is it money? Is it speed? Is it control? Is it, is it compliance? What is it? What are the business reasons for doing this? Then we were able to really take a good look at it and come out to where we wanted to be. And you'll hear HPE people talk about the right mix of this hybrid IT. It's going to be different for everyone. There's no expectation there that, somebody won't be all in. I've got big enterprise customers that I talk to who are saying, hey man, I'm all in. I'm like, great. What's your time frame? Well, we're thinking a year. And again, great, but maybe you should plan on something other than a year. And then when they really analyze it, they say, okay, we need a transition. We need your help. We need your products and your services. And, we appreciate that HPE is not just saying, keep buying hardware. So I just want everybody to know that's not our objective. We understand what's going on, and we think we will be significant players in the market going forward. Thank you very much. I think I'm done. Am I done?